Hey YouTube, welcome to part 2 of the budget GS300 turbo build. Here we are with the motor mounts off of the original engine. As you can see, they were pretty well torn, so I replaced them with some Megan Racing ones. Here's the motor as it stood. I put on the VVTi control solenoid and the line. Since it's a non-VVTi bottom end block, you got to run it with this line from PHR. Now you can see the CNC porting. There's the belt train on the front. Put the lower intake plenum and the injectors in. Those are 440cc, 42-pound Lucas style injectors. Here's the exhaust manifold. I wrapped it. Used some zip ties to hold the wrap in place while I put the metal crimp clamps on. Yep. And here's another view of it too. You can see the paint work I did on the block. And the motor mount's on. The wastegate's on there too, which I was trying to fit it up and see how I was going to angle out the screamer pipe that was going to come out of there. I'm just test fitting stuff here, really. The manifold was bolted in place, but like the water line you see to the left for the heater core and the turbine side of the turbo, I wanted to really fit stuff up to see how it was going to have to be clocked and if I needed to bend any lines out of the way, which I did find I did need to bend the rear water line out of the way, so I used a torch and a ratchet, actually an extension, to kind of use as a breaker bar on it, and very carefully heated it up and bent it out of the way. As you can see, once you see the downpipe is put on, you'll see why I really needed that clearance. And I wrapped the downpipe. I really like how it turned out. Honestly, for a budget build, I did not think it would turn out this nicely. Here I'm getting pretty excited that I'm seeing this stuff come together. Here I start the wiring. So if you were just to do this and keep the normal igniter that came on the GS300, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but because I'm running the original ECU harness with an Aristo ECU, and then I decided to use some Yaris Camry coils, the 1ZZ coils on there, I did need to do quite a bit of wiring on the engine side. So as you can see, I've got the harness on the car, but still, or on the engine, but actually like pretty well taken apart. And just making sure I'm like, I have enough links to run to everything, because this is significantly changing the layout by moving the manifold to a forward-facing manifold and running coil on plug instead of the igniter setup. So here I've got all these wires torn apart. It does look like a mess. If you guys have any specific questions about it, I mean, I can help you. Super V World was extremely helpful in this portion. He has a lot of videos on doing the coil on plug conversion. And the O2 side, it uses the same O2 plug, and literally I used the factory stock GS300 O2s with the Aristo ECU, and they worked fine. There we are. They moved quite a bit forward onto the downpipe rather than down on the headers. I've got all these down. I've also took apart a lot of the wire harness so I could tuck a lot of the wires underneath the intake manifold, the forward-facing one. And here I've got all the wires broken out for the coil and plug. I used a hanger to run them through the stock loom, that big rubber accordion loom. And then I slowly branched them each off with electrical tape and zip ties to basically organize it all. Usually I'm so used to doing harnesses actually on a bench and measuring it all out and not doing it on the engine. But I will say I definitely enjoyed doing it on the engine out of the car like this. I feel like I was a lot more efficient. It actually saved me a lot of time. Here's my daughter.
Turbo, where's the wastegate?
She wanted to be out in the garage every instance I got out there.
That's the wastegate. So. Yeah, that's good. All right, where's the motor mount?
She wanted to try her knowledge at identifying car parts. She has the Fast Kids storybooks, so she sees a lot of these parts in there.
That's a motor mount.
Oh,
that's a wastegate.
Come here.
Yeah.
Yep, and there's the turbo drain, so you can just get an idea for the clearance. With that Chinese-made manifold, it really doesn't leave a lot of clearance for oil drain and coolant lines, but I was able to make it work. Yep, and as you can see here, I tried a 45 vibrant piece for the discharge of the oil drain flange, and it was way too tight. I ended up running a 60, So I can find the part number for that, but honestly, I just bought it on Amazon. So if you run these manifolds, a 90 is going to be way too tight, and it's going to be a really sharp, aggressive bend on it. But a 60 will work in there as long as you clock it properly. As you can see, the turbo can't even sit flat with the 45 in there. And here's the rad designs manifold adapter here with the wiring. Put the manifold on there. Now I was doing this so I could make sure the routing was good. I knew it was going to be a little bit of a tight fit, but and there's the gasket for the forward-facing throttle body. If you guys need that part number, you can freeze it there. It is stood with the turbo, so the turbo's clocked there. I just had to still clock the front cover, but I was trying to get the oil lines and coolant lines at the proper angles. And there's the coil and plug setup. These are junkyard 1ZZ coils. So they've been great though. I've been running them in the car for over a year now. And there's my oil feed with the filter. I later found out that those filters can actually produce quite a bit of delay in the oil feed to the turbo on startup, especially if your oil line drains back. They actually act as another restrictor in the line. So I ended up deleting that eventually and just going straight from the oil pressure T directly to the turbo. And actually, I did not end up running it underneath the engine like that. Here's the input shaft to the A340E that I got from an Aristo that I was going to put on the car. So basically the idea behind this was to run the stock Aristo ECU with a stock Aristo 4-speed auto instead of the 5-speed automatic that came in the car. Just basically for strength. The 5-speed auto is not known to handle boosted power very well. The A340, while some people consider it still living on borrowed time, it is a transmission that has been built by numerous companies like ATF and some other builders. And Transgo has a kit for it too. So what I ended up doing is actually doing the Transgo Shift kit on it. And as you can see here, I've got the pan pulled off. See the filter and the valve body with all the solenoids. Yep. Here's another shot of it in the daylight so you can kind of see a little bit better. And here's the Transgo. I didn't do an unboxing here, but here's basically the instructions that I had to follow for it. They have, I think, 4 or 6 different valve bodies in their instruction manual. So this does fit a lot of the 4-speed Toyota rear-wheel drive transmissions, and their the Jeep ones too, and the 4-wheel drive ones for the RAV4s and the Tundras and Tacomas. But basically, it came with a lot of springs, different plungers too. And one thing it doesn't include is gaskets though for the valve body. So be aware if you do buy that kit. I think it's Jegs. I actually purchased it. There's a gasket kit that their parent company sells, and I can link the information and link to that down below. But it comes with like 12 or 14 different gaskets, so you got to compare them and figure out which one fits your valve body. But here's the valve body pulled out of the transmission. I kept all the bolts in there so you can see them kind of organized. Here's the 2 halves of the valve body. That sheet in the middle, that black sheet, is actually a piece of metal, sheet metal sandwiched in between the two, and there's a gasket on either side. So you can see all the paths for the valve body. There's the other side of the valve body. And be very careful because there are a lot of magnetic balls in there that can just fall out, and then you will not be able to find them in your garage after they get lost. So I'm using a giant Tupperware bin to keep everything in the same area. You see that plunger? I didn't end up actually using that plunger that I was just holding in my hand. It didn't fit, and after doing extensive online research, it seems like they just don't fit those valve bodies at all. It's mainly for like the older early 90s A340s that came in like the SC300s and the SC400s and the Toyota Supras, but the electronically controlled ones of the 99 and up or 98 and up Aristos didn't use those. So this was just basically a throwaway piece. As you can see there, I've got the gasket kits. You have to go through them. They're organized by years, but
the 99.
granted, even if it says a year in a certain car, it doesn't mean it won't fit your thing. You have to basically just look at each one of them and see what will fit, and kind of eyeball it, and then open the package and see if it fits your sheet metal
A341
piece.
is
Yeah, that one says A341E.
A341E.
99 and up.
Yeah. So I guess that's what this transmission's actually called. It's got all the little gaskets and everything. The holes line up.
Transdeck was the parent company, by the way.
Like this
You
hole,
can see by the
it doesn't line
logo
up
on
exactly,
the
but there's
gasket.
a hole drilled on it. But I think it's actually supposed to be like that, because I think that's how the siphon tube works on that side of it. So it actually, the gasket lines up with that.
Yeah, I've got my gasket laid down
There's 2
on it.
layers of gasket with space
Ready to reassemble.
to screw down. I noticed one thing in Timeless Steel's video. So he had cut a keeper for this solenoid on the other side. And you'll see that in his video. Don't do that. If you have an A341E, so like an Aristo VVT trans, you don't need to do that. You have a clip here. That keeper was meant if you had like a TV cable coming in here and you had the little cam that turns back and forth and pushes the actual solenoid rod in and out. But if you don't have that, you don't have to worry about it. All right.
Here I am reassembling the valve body back together. Got my little trusty Milwaukee gun. Here's the leftover fluid from there. There's all the solenoids plugged back in very carefully. Now I'm getting ready to put the new seal on and the new filter. So the input seal is something definitely to do while you have the torque converter and the transmission outside of the car. And there's the new filter. And then you can see my putty job of some RTV that I'm letting cure before I put it on there. Fan back on. I do the front seal. Always very satisfying to see the new orange seal in there. Make sure it's not going to leak when the torque converter goes on. And there's the throttle body comparisons. You can see between the two. One is significantly longer with the forward facing, the one with the pink stripe. And that's out of a Mark IV Toyota Supra USDM, so it's left side drive.
So this metal piece just pops out.
Here I show that, yeah, you have to pull that sheet metal piece off of the Toyota Supra one and put the GS300 one on there to get it to fit. And there's the GS300 pedal. I had to pull that out of the car. There's a comparison between the GS300 front drive shaft half and the Aristo one. The Aristo one is significantly shorter, probably about like an inch or so. Just be aware that the transmission is not direct swapping without that. Here's the breather. The breather that on my transmission was broken off when I got it, so went ahead and got one. I think that's from a Toyota Tacoma, but the part number's there if you need it.
As you can see, transmission comes back all together. Got the motor mount on there.
There's the mount on the back.
Oil pan sealed up.
I ended up using the factory GS300 mount and it worked fine.
Converter's ready to go on.
I did have to swap the direction of the mounting bracket, but I was able to use the factory rubber mount. There's the breather. Didn't go in all the way, but it did fit in there very tight and snugly. So that wraps up part 2 of the budget GS300 build. Next episode, we'll make the transmission and engine together and get it dropped in the car. Fire it up. Thank you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate your feedback.